demands of training, the pressure of big matches, and the inevitable self-doubt and disappointment that comes from losing. More and more of these premier athletes work with sports psychologists to clear their minds and remain focused on winning and improvement. The author, James Clear, explored the practices of highly successful athletes and professionals in his book, Atomic Habits. What he found was that, by and large, most of them found success by constantly improving in little ways all the time. Also, they generally were not vastly more talented than other athletes, other people. Instead, what each of them shared in common was the ability to stay focused when others got distracted, discouraged, or overwhelmed. In other words, he wrote, what looks like a talent gap is often a focus gap, and vision is the bottleneck of talent. And so their ability to stay focused on the game and on their training and the things around them was the actual talent that people like Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, and so many other elite athletes used to become the greatest of all time in their particular sports. Now, tonight our scriptures reveal this same truth, but on a spiritual level. The difference between a saint and a sinner is not some sort of special favor mysteriously given to some and not others. Nor is it a thing some are born with and others will never have. Instead, the ability to grow in holiness in some small way every day and to focus on what is most important in any given situation while blocking out what is not, that is what makes a person great in their practice of faith. In the first reading, Elijah, who is fleeing the wicked King Ahab and the murderous Queen Jezebel, has the opportunity to encounter God. The Lord tells him to stand outside the cave and wait for him. First comes a mighty wind, then a tremendous earthquake, followed by a roaring fire. Each of these had been manifestations of God in the past, but in this moment, they are distractions. Elijah remains focused through each of them, and the moment he hears that tiny whisper, he recognizes it as the presence of God. From this tiny whisper, he will receive encouragement, direction, and confidence on what comes next. Elijah was one of the greatest prophets, not simply because of what he said or did, but because of his ability to stay focused on God, which then led him to say and do what the Lord wanted every step of the way. And then, of course, we have this wonderful story where Jesus walks on the water. In this famous scene, Peter and the disciples are getting beat up by a storm at sea. And I think we often focus on the fact that Peter doubts and sinks. But we should remember that he and the other disciples are in the boat, first of all, because of their faith. Just before this passage, Jesus had fed the massive crowd who had been with him an entire day. Matthew tells us Jesus made the disciples get into a boat and precede him to the other side, while he himself dismissed the crowds. Some of the apostles were fishermen, and they would have known better than to get into a boat and head out onto the Sea of Galilee for anything or anyone else besides Jesus. We will begin to sink. In those moments, like St. Peter, we must refocus. Saying, "Take this, all of you, and eat of it, for this is my body, which will be given up for you. For this is the chalice of my blood, blood of the new and eternal